Right. So, apologies if you saw the lightning talk on pet projects that I did last year, but this is a bit more of a deep dive into the CMS system that I designed, must have been about 6 or 7 years ago now, that I got a little business running, doing websites for beauty salons back then, and I was looking at doing a booking system, like appointment booking system for salons, but unfortunately ran out of money and went back to contracting, and then after getting a contract with Connect, ended up going permanent. So I guess this is like how I got to where I am now at Connect, really, kind of. So going back in time, back in March 2009, my wife Sonia was in Pinderfields Hospital in Wakefield. She was getting some kidney stones taken out, but I was away from work for about a week or so, and so in between like the hospital visiting hours, I was staying at a guest house, so I just took my laptop with me and thought, well, I might as well do something useful, so I started writing a CMS in Java, and it was good because it was the sort of time that I was first picking up Spring framework, so it was a good opportunity to learn Spring and a few other things like that. And so some of the things that I learned with this, so Spring of course, and Struts 2, and Spring Security, and then Hibernate, and a bit more JDBC. And then there's also an XML database called Exist. Has anybody heard of Exist? No? But it's basically like a native XML database written in Java, and then Postgres, and later on Jenkins and Git, and then a bit of JavaScript, jQuery and CSS, and then various app servers. It started off on JBoss, then I moved it to Glassfish, and then I moved it on to Tomcat, but the Exist database runs on Jetty, and then I learned lots about how to set up Linux servers and configure Apache, and all that sort of like DevOps and sysadmin type stuff as well. And obviously I chose open source because it's free to download and to use, and I've got access to the source code if I need to debug things in more detail. And then also there's the opportunity to give something back, which ironically I haven't done so with this particular project as yet, but who knows, if anybody's still using these technologies in the future, I might do at some stage. And the requirements that I had for this, the first thing is it's got to be easy to use, so that salon owners and like beauticians can update their website content without like needing a PhD in computer science, because I don't think that many of them would have a PhD or anything like that. And also because there'd be like fairly small clients, I'd want to support multiple websites and accounts on a single web app. And then, different clients have different requirements, so the ability to customize CMS to a given client's requirements was quite important. And then also tying it in with this client database and online booking that never got finished. So, to summarise, it was using Exist and Spring Framework and Spring Security and whatnot. It was initially deployed to like JBoss and Glassfish. It's using custom scopes on Spring. Has anybody come across those before? Because on Spring you've normally got things like your singleton scope, where you've just got one instance of a bean in that Spring container, and then prototype scope, where you get a new object every time. But I was using some custom scopes, so based on part of the URL, which was like the name of that account, it would create a Spring scope specific to that account for things like Hibernate sessions. So you could have you complete like a unique database instance for each account, which is a bit of a bizarre way of doing it, because normally you just like have all your accounts in the same database instance and just like have like different keys for each account. But I took the rather paranoid approach of having a completely separate database instance for each client. And it's also a bit bizarre in that it's using at the same time it's got Postgres and it's got exist. Although later on, I changed it so you could just have exist on its own if you didn't need like the client booking system, because that was like to try and save memory requirements, because it turned out that having all these different database instances running at the same time would gradually like eat up the memory if there were like too many running at once. So that's like I said, I've also done like other optimizations like caching. So before, what was happening, every time it was requesting a page, it was making a request to the XML database that was then creating the HTML content on the fly within the database, but instead, the first time after a particular page loads, after it's been changed, it just caches it then until somebody changes it again. And then also got load balancing working, so you've got like 3 different Glassfish or Tomcat instances. And initially I used the Tiny MCE text editor, but then there was another one called Redactor that's a lot better because it's easier to upload images and documents to that, whereas with Tiny MCE I couldn't figure a way out how to use the text editor to like upload an image and have it stored in the database on the file system with that, but that was doable with Redactor. So this is like the basic architecture. So you've got your Apache web server, you've got mod proxy, and then that's forwarding your requests through either via HTTP or AJP, depending on how it's configured. And then there's Glassfish, or Tomcat as it is now. So you've got your struts2 actions, which is like your controller layer it would be in Spring MVC. Then there's the service layer, then your data access objects. And the way I did the DAOs was that there's like 3 different sorts. So you've got DAOs for talking to the XML database, DAOs for talking to Hibernate, and then DAOs for reading stuff off the file system. And with exist, what that can also do, it can make HTTP requests itself. So what it was doing, suppose you've got like some data that's in Postgres, you can make a call back to the web app, and then that was serializing some content from the Postgres database into XML and then returning it to exist, and then exist was like, doing a lot of manipulation of that data to turn it into a web page, and then like returning it back to the application. So a bit of a roundabout way of doing it, but it worked. And then you've just got your Linux file system for storing things like images and for storing cached copies of web pages. And so what have I learned? So, like I said, lots of DevOps, sysadmin stuff on Linux, especially around CentOS, and then Apache configuration, including things like mod rewrite and how to set up load balancing, and then maintaining Java web apps on several different app servers, running Git and SVN, and then also lots of problem-solving skills like debugging, looking up stuff on Google, using Visual VM, which I think I did a talk on Visual VM last year, and on like performance testing. And so why am I not doing this now? So unfortunately, because this was between like November 2009 and August 2010 that I did the bulk of this work, I spent too much time doing websites that I didn't charge enough money for, and I didn't spend enough time on doing the appointment booking, which was a bit stupid, because if I'd sorted the appointment booking out, then that would just be something that I could just sell on and it would just do its thing. Whereas with websites, you've got to create them in the first place, and then you've got like quite a bit of ops load maintaining existing sites, especially when people keep asking you like questions on SEO and that sort of thing, which isn't really my thing compared to coding Java. And also, this was before I'd learned Agile, so I didn't plan things anywhere as well as I should have done. So if I was doing it Agile now, I'd have a product backlog, I'd be doing it in sprints, minimum viable product, rather than gold plating things to the extreme and not finishing other things off. And then finally, Connect being so awesome as they are, when they offered me a permanent role the year before last night was actually, I jumped at the chance. So I'll have been with Connect as a permanent employee 2 years at the end of July. So, now it's the exciting bit where we're going to fire the thing up and show you it working. So there's an admin page for starters. So this is like the back end that I would log into. And it's also got capture to try and stop sort of like dictionary attacks if somebody wants to just like send you lots of requests over and over again to try and hack the passwords. I mean, this was done before the days of responsive websites, so it's got a nice little message to me. And what I've done, I've set up a WM-JUG test account. And there's also it's like a WM-JUG test website as well.
Going into diversification.
What, WM-JUG?
Yeah.
And as you can see, it's before the days of responsive design, because on the title screen it would do that, which is, you know, obviously if I was doing this stuff now, it would be responsive, but I'm doing it for Connect instead, which is a lot better, so that's cool. So if I wanted to edit the home page, I go onto this page called Edit Salon Details, and you put the name in. Faraday Wharf, Birmingham. Let's tap that this. And this is Redactor, so if I wanted to put an image in there, then I could just like click on the insert image and choose a file from the file system. So let's find a good one. That looks like a TARDIS, that'll do. So it's put a big TARDIS on there now. And I can shrink that down because it's ridiculously massive. Exactly, yeah. So I should be able to grab the corner of that TARDIS and make it a much more sensible size. And then if I save that and refresh the page, then, I mean, that's like very sort of like basic CMS type stuff. But as well as that, I could add treatments. So this would be like the treatment menu. So you could have something like, if they're doing hair, you could have, it splits it into groups. So you might have cuts and colours, and you might just like have a haircut might be, I don't know, 30 quid, and hair colour, they might charge, I don't know, 40 quid for that. You can add a description, so that could be you need a patch test. And then you can just like add that, and then you go back to the page and it'll refresh, and you've got your hair page now, and it's put it out in a nice table, and it's saying about the patch test and stuff as well. And also, I'm going to show where I got to with this appointment booking in a minute as well. So I'm going to add myself as a beauty therapist on this.
Leave your date of birth blank.
Okay, well I'm 42 on a week on Wednesday, so there you go.
Wow.
Not going to lie about that. So I'll just add myself on there. And then you can even put like a little photo of yourself on there too. And then it's got a copyright message because a few years ago there was this company over in Israel and it was like spidering all these websites, and if it found a stock photo that shouldn't have been there, it was sending you details to a legal firm that was like sending you a bill for £1,000, and if you don't pay up you get sued. So there was a story about that going on a forum that I was on. So to avoid that happening, I put that copyright message on, as well as configuring the firewall to block all known IP addresses used by that company in Israel. So that, you know, if they did try and get on, hopefully they'd just get blocked. So let me see, I've got a picture of these somewhere. So I'll put my picture up on there. And I can save that. And then go on to appointments. Hopefully I've set up everything I need for this. I think this will be quite basic. I know what I haven't done. I haven't added the opening hours. So if you don't add the opening hours, you don't see any times. So we'll just make it like standard 9 to 5:30. I'll just put it on Monday and Tuesday for now, so I'm not spending too much time doing it. Put Wednesday in as well, because we don't want to be adding stuff in the past. So then hopefully if I do that, and go to that appointments tab, I might see something. Still? Oh, here we go. So we've got today's date, and there's me, and there's the calendar. So okay, this is like going back into the past. Oh, there's no client, so that's no good. So let's add a new client. A bit slow today.
Is that to help with his resignation? Go to the beauty salon.
Time on his hands now.
Yeah, yes.
Put him down as the House of Commons.
Don't think he's there anymore.
So now I can go back to the appointment thing. And then 10 o'clock. Do a search for Smith. There he is, select him. And this
He
is
deserves a pampered party.
this is a bit ironic. I think actually that's going to take about a minute. We'll charge him £1 because he's got hardly any hair. Actually, a minute's probably not.
Give him a colour as well, like.
Good idea, actually.
And a polish.
So yeah, notes hardly any hair. Next. What's this saying? It's saying, oh, that's just the notes confirming the details. Book the appointment.
Yeah.
And then just close this. As you can see, it's just put it on there for about a minute. Yeah, and as that's a bit difficult to see, what you can also do is you can increase the time resolution down to the nearest minute if you're actually working that close. And I'll show you something else that's quite nice. If I go on to... I've got Firefox, I've got a different browser. WM-JUG. So I'm viewing this on a different browser. And there's that tiny appointment there. If I edit that, then I think this is basically not implemented yet. So instead, what I'll do, I'll have a different one on instead. So somebody said he needed a hair colour. So if I book him in at 10:30, and we'll give him 60 minutes for that. Then that's done it. So on Chrome, it's put him in there. But on Firefox, it's automatically updated that. Because what it's doing, it's polling every 5 seconds in the background to pull back some JSON to say if it's changed or not. And then if it's changed, it just sends you the details of the things that have changed. Yeah, who wants to see code? Or is there any, what do you reckon, code or questions, do you think, at this stage?
Quick code.
Cool, yeah. So this is just like the Alchemy project, that was just like fairly generic stuff. So there's like packages for Google Checkout, because I did have like a fairly Mickey Mouse sort of shopping cart thing that used like Google Checkout and PayPal as well. But it was a nightmare because it was trying to do the logic for a shopping cart in XSLT, which was probably a bit of a masochistic way of doing it, really, thinking about it in hindsight, but it kind of felt like good fun at the time. And then I also had this thing called Big Brother that I never quite got off the ground as well, and that was like web statistics, but you know, to the level that the privacy activists would probably hate, because it would like log every single request in detail, and you'd be on like a breadcrumb trail of exactly what somebody did on the site at any given time. But thankfully it didn't get off the ground, because I would have probably got sued for breaking like all the privacy
You'd be
rules.
surprised actually. LV.com logs literally every key press.
Oh goodness, LV, that's the insurance company.
That's right, yeah.
But if I go on to the main project, then somebody's doing something outside. So you've got your data access objects. So things like the clients, I mean, it was this is like in the days before clean code as well, so there's like lots of Java comments and like loads of comments, even when it's like totally self-explanatory what it's doing. So it's just like a bog standard data access object, and there's like various implementations. So for that one, that was Hibernate. So it was just using Spring's Hibernate template stuff to do that. I mean, this was like back in 2009, 2010 that this sort of code was written, and it's just got like far too many comments in there as well. And then you've got your XML database stuff as well. So, for example, like the treatment stuff, and there's like XPaths to, because it uses XQuery to query the database. Anybody come across XQuery before? Yeah. So, what have you used it with?
Just for fun.
What, just for fun? Like, was it with Exist, or was it with like MarkLogic or something else? Or Saxon?
I can't remember.
Oh, was it a while ago then?
Yes.
Alright, cool. Any questions, or anybody wants to sort of like ask anything?
Did you find it easy or difficult, more difficult working with the potential market in mind? Did it help with finding folks you...
Oh goodness, that helped a lot actually, yeah. But then unfortunately, on the downside, I spent too long doing like websites instead of coding the booking system and coding the Java, which was a shame. But I guess you live and learn really, don't you?
That's experience.
Yeah.
Do you have any tests?
Sadly not. Actually, I tell a lie. There are some tests, but for a more complex part of the system. I'll just find those. Where are the tests? Where's the tests gone? Oh, there you go. So this was like some of the backup stuff. Wait, here we go. So this is like old school JUnit, so it's not even got annotations or anything like that. I think this was like towards the end of 2009 that I wrote this. So it's got like the list of files as XML and like the expected outcome. It's using a library called Xstream for converting Java objects into XML and vice versa.
That's a good one.
You like that as well?
It was written by a ThoughtWorks guy.
I think it was, wasn't it? Yeah. I think the reason I like it is that it does a lot for you just out of the box.
It's really simple to use.
Exactly, yeah. And it must be pretty fast, I think, as well. So this is like the backup thing that would go off at like 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning, and it would basically work out what's changed on the database in the last day, and create like a delta of what's changed, and then just send that